Okay, so we're just talking with Rachel and Tyler on Friday, the 12th of May. Tutorial is about reflection on learning module in the review of learning for teaching. So Bronwyn Hegarty here, and I was just doing a little bit of a plug for using reflection when you're putting things into portfolios. It has, it was identified as an issue back in 2006-07 when I was starting to think about my doctoral research. So that's why I developed the 3-step reflective framework to guide people to reflect more deeply. I mean, and what I found in the literature was it's very common for people to be able to describe what they're doing, say what's happening, but when you ask them why did that happen, or to go to that level of critical analysis about their performance or other people's performance or the situation they found themselves in, people find that quite challenging to do. And there is a process you can go through where a woman called Gilly Bolton says that you should treat, when you're looking at your experience that you're reflecting on, treat it as if you're looking at a movie. So you kind of step back from it and you're watching all the actors in your mind. You're watching the actors and thinking about what they were doing and trying to describe that. But then you take it to another level later when you've recorded or written or talked about what they were doing. You then think about, okay, start to analyse the situation. What were they thinking? What do you think they were thinking? What were their perceptions? Why did they respond the way they do? Why did I respond the way I did?
Is it like a third party perspective?
Yeah, it is. And the literature also says that description is very common, but that you get to a deeper level of reflection, you do need to stand back from the situation to kind of look at it objectively. When you're first writing about it, it's best not to make judgments about it at that point. It's not till you get to what I say is my second step of the framework is you start analysing it then and thinking about why. Because what you want to get out of that reflection is understanding your learning and thinking about how you can change your practice and then in some instances the practice of others. So if you're working in a situation where others' behaviour is impacting on you, you also have to think, well, has this happened in other situations? That's where you start looking at the literature, the research, thinking, well, what are other perspectives about these kinds of situations or issues, and how can I use that research to then inform how I want to change things? And that's why we go on about multiple perspectives and say, well, if you're doing that, if you're looking more broadly, not just at what's happening in your classroom.
When we had the observation the other day, I guess when you come away, you actually started to look at your class as if someone else was watching you. So while teaching it, I felt more aware of everything.
So you found that happening, like you felt like you were stepping slightly outside of it?
Definitely, yeah. I was kind of, just sort of trying to think what Trish could see, I guess, and then, yeah. And
as long as you didn't become disembodied and float above the classroom.
It's got an out-of-body experience.
Teaching, I know teaching is wonderful, but I'm not sure if it's that great. Yeah. So, I mean, does all that kind of make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, there's so much literature around reflection. It's really trying to choose a model or a framework that kind of you can use and get familiar with. And there's lots out there. So, I mean, what I guess I'm trying to do is just introduce you to this one that I developed, and then you can explore later on and try out different ones that suit. Yeah. So, have you discovered where to find it?
Find
the framework. Did you get an invite to share my desktop?
No, I'm not sure.
Just
Where
have a
would
wee
that be?
look with your link, because I did. I'll just do it again because I'm not sure if.
Where will it come up? Oh,
Hang on, I'll just. You should get an invite now coming through, but
ah,
just pop up with
okay.
your link.
Accept. Yep, that's there now. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I can see both of you now.
Oh. Can you see the review of learning for teaching
Yep.
page? Cool. So going into module reflection on learning. So what I did last week as well, Rachel, was just take people through the Moodle course just to make sure that they understood how everything was set out. So hopefully you've had a chance to look through. So there'll usually be a blurb and an intro to this topic. And I'm using a couple of people in mini case studies. Amelia is one of the people, and the other person who'll show up will be someone called Brett. So go down to the ebook. And I'm going to put learning objectives at the beginning of each module. They are what you are going to learn, well, hopefully learn as you work through the ebook and the topics. It's slightly different to the learning outcomes, which are learning outcomes for the course of what you are expected to learn and be assessed against when you've finished.
Mm-hmm.
So these are just objectives to guide you a wee bit. And you can also set your own learning objectives as well in your personal learning journal. So do you understand the difference between the personal learning journal and the reflective portfolio?
No.
Tyler, do you want to describe your understanding of it?
Well, your personal learning journal is obviously a personal thing that you can work on your assessments as you go, and then once they're ready, you can put them into your what was the other one?
Portfolio.
Your portfolio, which is available for other people to see.
Okay.
So what I've done, I've got just a Word document that I write I've written my assessment out on my reflective teaching story, the first one. So I'm working through that, and once it's ready, I'll put it into my reflective.
Oh, okay, right.
What do you call it?
Portfolio.
For others to see.
Good.
Yeah.
So I don't look at your personal learning journal, and like Tyler said, you can use whatever you want to for that because that's not shared. So the terminology is slightly different. You know, I think you had a learning journal in fundamentals, and that was looked at by the lecturers. So the terminology is slightly different. So I'm using that for the activities that are not looked at and given feedback on. That's just for you. So in there you can put your goals, your own learning objectives, your notes about how you think you're going, different topics, you know, like your understanding, things you need to look at. And then, as Tyler said, you know, if you're developing up a piece or an activity for the summative portfolio, then you can also develop it in there, a bit like a sandbox, if you like, where you're playing around with it. And then your reflective portfolio is where you put your work, your formative assessments to start with as you go through the course, and then I give feedback on that, and I'm hopefully encouraging others in the class to give each other feedback on, you know, it's always a good idea to get that. You can.
It's quite a different sort of a thing, sharing your thoughts like that with people, I guess, with others that you don't know.
Yeah.
Sort of, in some cases, it can be quite personal. Like I don't know.
I think the way the activities are designed, the way you prepare it, I think you need to be quite objective. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't put emotional and feelings and stuff like that in your reflections. But it's also learning how to write it in a more you need to write it in a fairly confidential way, so you're not identifying anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, what
Which
you
is
do
a good
in your
practice
personal, yeah. So I think having an audience at the end, even though there might be confidential stuff that it's only shared within the class, and I mean, clearly people have, we haven't articulated that, but people should know that professionally what's in the class stays in the class.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will help get a bit more comfortable about it. Yeah, and I mean, you are examining your teaching as well, which can be very personal and in some cases raw if you've had a bad experience. Yeah. So I mean, if there's anything that you feel particularly sensitive about sharing, then just let me know. Talk to me first. Yeah, and that goes for everybody.
Yeah, I can see what you mean there. It can be quite a personal thing, and if you're not used to sharing with people you don't know, it's not very easy.
No. I kind of think it probably dictates what you actually end up putting in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because there's a lot of, if you're only preparing stuff because you think that's what the end reader wants, but it's not really true to what you have experienced, then it is biased, isn't it? So it's trying to get a balance between it being something real and something that's, just for assessment. Yeah. So one of the things I get you to look at in this module is look at the definitions of reflection and come up with something for yourself. So let's have a go now. Just whatever comes out the top of your head, what you think reflection is, without looking at the definition. So I should cover them up.
Reflection to me is like just looking back at what you've done and analysing it and seeing what you can do better.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Have you written that down already?
No, I'll write it down right now.
What about you, Rachel?
Oh, I'm sorry, I got distracted for 5 seconds there. Can you just say that again?
Yeah, what would you say reflection is in your view?
For me personally, but I've only been teaching for a year. For me, I'm almost reflecting back on where I began. So improvements in my cases, or feedback and ways to improve future teaching.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the process, and it was only brief, but the process of gathering feedback from my learners the other day after we had our observation. That was really cool. I enjoyed that, and so it's something I will certainly put into more of a habit now, I guess.
Oh, excellent. It's good to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the definitions, reflection is something that you do that's intentional. So, I mean, some people say, well, reflection, it's just me thinking, it's all in my head. It has to be a bit more than that, because what you want to do is examine it. Like Tyler said, you're kind of looking at it more deeply and thinking about it, and then there's an end point, you want to get something out of it.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Because when you're just reflecting in your head, it tends to jump from one thing to the next, and you don't really sometimes summarize it, I guess, in a way.
Exactly. And I mean, writing things down is really good, and there's a lovely term called concretizing, which is meaning if you write it down or you record it in some way or you talk about it with someone else, you're making it a more permanent reflection.
Yeah, definitely. And
someone said yesterday morning, because I ran another shoot yesterday morning, they called it cementing. And you can see the cement, concrete, it's pretty solid. So instead of it just being something that's vaporized and floating around in your head, it becomes a more solid thing that you can then return to if you want later on and examine it further, so you take it to a metacognitive level of really looking into it more deeply. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Otherwise, what you're teaching is not going to improve as such, is it? It's just going to be the same every time because you haven't got that process of bettering constantly from the reflection. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, some people, have kept diaries from when they were young and are quite used to that writing, they're quite used to that, getting their feelings on paper. Other people have never done that, so it's a lot harder, and they may not even like to feel comfortable talking to other people about it, a situation, because you are exposing yourself and making yourself quite vulnerable, even if it's just with yourself. You're talking to yourself, in a self-reflective way. But one thing that I discovered was if you ask questions about your experience, to yourself, or a mentor asks you questions, that draws out a deeper level of reflection as well. So that questioning is quite useful. That's why I've got questions in the framework. So I might just move to the next page because I think there's a link there to framework. And so one of the first next activity is looking at your best and worst learning experience and using the framework to then develop that. I'll just open that up. So 3 levels are to really notice the experience and describe it. So you're almost reliving it. I have had discussions with people who have said, well, actually your memory's probably not that good, so how can it be, I think we just have to take it at face value, because if you do record something quite quickly after the event, you're probably likely to remember it better than if you wait.
Definitely.
Think about something that happened 10 years ago. So that's why the thinking about your best and worst learning experiences could be a little bit tricky. Might be not that much to draw on. I can't remember much about my schooling years. I think I probably blocked a lot of it out. Yeah.
I remember learning how to swim at Moana Pool, and it was with Duncan Lang. If we don't know, he trained Daniel Loader.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he used to hit us on the top of the head with a stick if we weren't doing it right.
Great teaching.
That's probably a bad teaching experience, yeah.
But sometimes I think those bad teaching experience can make you a better person in some of the ways you do. I had a bad employer, I suppose, who I learned a lot from. But I also learned a lot as to how not to treat people, kind of thing, within that situation. So it's funny how those bad can sometimes end up being quite a learning experience.
Yeah, so we're going to ask you to dredge those up. And then, so that first stage is quite important, and it's just looking at it objectively and getting your emotional engagement in there with it, with your thoughts and feelings and what you understood at the time and decisions. And then the second step is just analysing it and thinking, well, why did you react the way you did? It's the big why. And you're basically what we call interrogating the experience, trying to make sense of it. And then the third step is taking action. What did you learn? How will you use that? So, I mean, if you look at the actual template, it's got prompting questions in it. Just open that up. You don't have to answer all the questions. They're just there to guide, your thinking. They're not really questions. I think I've changed it around, but so what decisions did you make? And then the prompts are some of the things you can be thinking about at the time. Yeah, I used to have mainly questions in the prompts, but I've changed it as something that's modified over the time I've been using it. And they've used this as the basis for the reflective journal on the Student Hub as well, which is pretty amazing. I'm really chuffed about that. Yeah. So, I mean, we all make assumptions about what went on, and I think that's a really important question, is what assumptions did you make and why did they influence you? Yeah. And then I try to get people to draw on the literature by looking at the research evidence, which is important. aspect. There's the third part, and the critical reflection comes in when you're looking at socio-economic, political, historical, cultural considerations, but also the literature. So is there a power relationship happening in the classroom? You know, is something else you could do to be fairer to students, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely. Probably not had I previously just been sitting writing my major reflection. My sitting. It's all just making more sense now.
So, I mean, you have to do it the way that suits you. If you just want to write from the heart to start with about it, and then you can, you know, some people say, okay, I'll try and fit it into the template then, or just think about what else do I need to add to this, you know. You can just approach it however you like, really. It's just a guide. Okay. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Right, go back to the page. So what you will end up with is you'll end up with formative assessment, which is creating your reflective teaching story. And that's looking back at some learning experiences. I mean, you know, you don't have to do tons and tons. It's really just, it's about the quality of what you're writing. It's not, you know, writing 10 pages here. I don't think I've given you a page. Have I given you a word count? I don't believe I have.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Not on this.
No.
Piece.
So, I mean, I'd be aiming for a couple of pages.
A couple of pages on just that first part, reflective teaching story.
Yeah. Well, developing it up. The first part, you're developing it up in your personal learning journal, and then when you refine it using the 3 steps more, you're, that'll be when you need to sort of consolidate it a bit more.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And that's the bit I'll be giving feedback on. And
can you just go up a wee bit so I can see the top of that page?
Sure.
I keep trying to use my mouse, it doesn't work.
No, there you go. Yeah. So then at the end of each ebook, I've got a summary, which is for you to think about, have you achieved this? And there's references for everything. Right. So I'm hoping, I'd be interested to know how long it takes people to develop this. How long have you spent on it so far, Tyler?
Oh, maybe a few hours, 5 hours.
Yeah.
5, 6 hours probably.
Okay. Do you feel like you're close?
That's just on the reflective teaching story.
Yeah.
I think I've got most of it done, but I'll get you to have a look if that's all right.
Excellent.
But it took me a bit of time to set up my Google website and stuff, as you know. You had to help me.
Yeah.
But
well, that's got to be good to actually see that if you want to share that with us.
There's not much in it, but you can have a look because I think you've got.
Have you put it through?
Yeah, I put you down as an authority person, remember?
Oh yeah.
So you could change it as well.
So Rachel, what are your thoughts about what you're going to use for your? I mean, I'm just. What did you use? I should ask first. What did you use in fundamentals?
I've started a. What is it called now? I can't remember the name of it. It's not OneNote, and it's not. I haven't done a lot to do with it. I've just had a wee extension on that one. I can't remember the name of it, but it was one of the ones that you guys had suggested to use here on
Google Sites, is it?
No.
Pathbright?
Yes, Pathbright.
Okay. Is that something you're using with your students?
No, it was new to me, and we have got one we are using with our students, and when I set it up, I just got lost, and that's a shame because I should be a bit more. Have got more into it, but then I went to the Pathbright and I found that a lot easier
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah, that's probably where I'll continue, I guess.
Okay.
So will I develop on that same one, or will I start a brand new one?
I think if you're quite comfortable with Pathbright, you can definitely carry on using that same site. You could set up a different category, so you know
Right,
how you
that's
set
what
up
I'm thinking.
categories. You
Yeah.
could have like review of learning for teaching. So it could be the
Yeah,
place
okay.
that you have all your coursework
Yes,
as you
right.
go through. Yeah. Why start another one and get lose the address? So
Yeah, well, I lost what it was even called, but that's okay.
just going to see if I can find Tyler's. We've got Julie coming shortly to talk to us about.
Unfortunately, I have to sneak out shortly. I have a field trip I'm supposed to be on.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sorry. I'll listen to the rest though later on.
I may not record it.
Oh, okay. Bother.
She just informed me this morning, unfortunately, she's only here for another 2 weeks because she's got another job, and I'm very disappointed. Happy for her, but
Yes.
I've got to find someone else now to work with people in GDTE because we've identified that it would be a very useful thing to have somebody like that.
What does she do?
Yeah, it is.
She was going to support learners in GDTA with their digital skill needs and just work alongside them because it's something that was identified last year.
Yep.
I mean, I've always tended to do that myself, but if we have a person that's dedicated in the organisation to that, I think we need to use that person. So I'm not sure what the plan is when she goes. So I'm going to have to find out. So that's Tyler's. Portfolio looks really cool.
It's my very basic portfolio at the moment.
Oh,
Is that you at work there?
No, that's actually a student.
Oh.
One of my students. Yeah, from last year.
That's a cool picture.
Yeah, it is a cool picture.
Yeah, I stole it from the Polytech website.
Creative Commons.
At least it keeps it in house.
So you're fine.
Yeah.
To use it. Yeah.
So basically, I've got an introduction page there, and then I've just created another page for my reflective portfolio.
I like that. That's cool. So
Which
what's the site called?
That's Google Sites.
Right, Google Sites. Yeah, right.
So you're using the old look version, are you?
Yeah, I just put that in there for sort of mucking around, really.
Yeah, so
I would probably change that, to be honest.
What I quite like about Google Sites, and I'm not saying you should change over at all, Rachel, but when I've used it with students, it's been quite useful because they can attach files, just like in Pathbright.
Yep. See, I haven't done much with this Pathbright, so perhaps I'll look into that as another option.
And they can set up comments area so that I can add comments. So what Tyler's also done is invite me as an editor, so I could actually write directly onto his pages as well if I want to.
Cool.
And it's quite intuitive to use because I'll just click on this. You've got create page up there, edit page, and then you've got different settings. So you can set your page settings so you can have a private page, or you can have manage the whole site. So part of it can be private and part can be just URL only. And then if you go create page, it just looks like a Word document, really.
Yeah, I like that. Actually, much better. It looks a bit more me.
Oh, well, you might find this even simpler to use, actually. Do you find it okay?
Yeah, it's actually very, very easy to use.
Yeah.
That's why I like it.
Yeah, so it's just got basic things like you can insert
that's awesome.
various things from Google.
Yep.
Formatting, tables, layout.
Because then it's a bit more yourself. If I found with the Pathbright, you were kind of, I don't know, limited to how you can do things, how you can lay things out and so on. But perhaps I hadn't just spent enough time.
Yeah. Well, you have a think, and then once you need help with it, Julie's here for 2 weeks, so she could certainly assist, but I can also assist as well if needed.
Have you got a Gmail address a Gmail?
No,
No.
I don't think so. Possibly from a past life, but
Yeah.
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 No, but I
That's
can
all right.
certainly set
You
one
have
up.
to set one up to do it, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
best to
Yeah.
have a separate Gmail
Yeah.
address. Yeah. So, I mean,
Right, now I'm going to have to sneak away. I'm so sorry.
this is definitely your space to do with as you wish. I'm trying to encourage. All right, Rachel, lovely that you could join us.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but yeah,
No.
it's something I need to be learning in another part of the world at the moment. Cool, we'll catch up. Thank you very much for that. That was fantastic.
Nice to meet you. Have fun on your
You
field
too.
trip.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.